Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Dan.
This
Stone.
is Dexter from The
This
Offspring.
is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is David Labb.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick
I'm
Gillette.
Krista
This is
Vernoff.
Dr. Bob Greenberg.
I'm Laird Hamilton.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, I'm Mark Valley.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
I'm Ben Lewin. I directed a movie called Please Stand By, starring Dakota Fanning.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero, Mark Valley, and Pete A. Turner.
Yeah, and we're in Santa Monica, so it is lovely and perfect right now. And Ben is here because he's directed this great movie called Please Stand By, starring Dakota Fanning, as he says. You guys should check that out on Facebook at Please Stand By Film, on Instagram, same kind of thing. You can find it everywhere. On Twitter, hashtag Please Stand By. It's a Magnolia Picture, so you can look it up there. It's, of course, available on Blu-ray, DVD, digital HD, all of those things. And I will say that a couple more times, but I really appreciate you being on the show. So recently, a guy from my hometown, Benicia, which is up north about 500 miles. It's a lovely little town, right as the Delta stops and the Bay starts. So it's kind of like this riverside, waterside town that's quaint and beautiful. And my buddy Joel Manzer runs a thing called autisable.com. And it's just sort of like a Facebook for folks that have someone in their life, or they have autism or Asperger's or any of those kind of situations. And so he came on and we started talking about that. He's like, there's so many things. There's this great movie coming out. And that led me to you and talking to you about the great film that you've done. So I wanted to give a shout out to Joel and his good work at Autisable. But I wanted to talk to you about this film and just start there. And I read the interview that Christina Radish did on Collider. So we'll probably cover a little bit of that stuff. But tell me how this project got to you, and then we'll go from there.
Look, it got to me after I did a film called The Sessions, John Hawkes and Helen Hunt. I really got a little avalanche of scripts, a lot of them about people who were marginalized in one way or another, and I thought, why not? If I have some kind of sensitivity in that subject area, why not use it? And I guess what particularly fascinated me about this script was, one, it was about a woman, and I thought, well, that's a new representation of autism, which is usually represented in men.
Sure. And
the image that people have in their minds is that kind of Rain Man image, that kind of robotic, super genius, quasi-human, that. And this was a very, very different image. This was about a woman who wanted emotional connection.
Right.
Who didn't, find sort of satisfaction in the world of mathematics and abstractions, as that Rain Man image suggested. But she was someone who wanted to connect with the real world, and the story is about her facing her fears of the real world. At another level, it's also a story about a writer, and being a writer in itself is a personality problem and a developmental issue, I think.
No doubt about that.
And I really connected with that, and the idea that she saw herself in a Star Trek universe was really fascinating. And I wasn't aware at that point of the profound connection between Trekkie culture and people on the spectrum. And I spoke to the mother of a young woman in Australia that I knew and somehow connected when I read this script. I said, oh, that's a little bit like her, and she became a kind of mental model for me. And when I talked about Star Trek, I said, oh yes, people connect with that sort of simple morality, the sense that everyone else is an alien. And most important, if you like, the idea that Mr. Spock was the first TV autistic hero.
I love it, yes.
And he was a guy who had difficulty coping with emotions.
Right.
And so, for me, this was a whole little journey of discovery of finding out what that Star Trek audience really was.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of whole geeky culture, which
Sure.
I really hadn't taken much notice of up until that time. And then I thought, well, it has a more profound meaning than just light entertainment to some people.
Let me jump in, and I want to ask you, because you said a lot of good things that I want to go back and dig into, but when I didn't realize until you started to make the statement about Mr. Spock being the first real autistic character, and Gene Roddenberry continues to innovate, even a long time after he died, and it's like, oh wow, he did innovate that. So when did you realize that? Is that something that you found years and years ago, or did you find that as you studied? Or
I found out in the course of making the movie. I mean, I know it's sort of staring you in the face, but I hadn't really taken Trekkie culture at all seriously. It didn't interest me all that much.
Right.
It became a challenge, and I binged on Star Trek, certainly the early series, and then just talking to people, of course it made sense. Spock was the sort of the voice that spoke to her, kind of the kindred spirit, and anyway, all those things were like unpeeling the onion for me.
Yeah, it never occurs to you, but of course, like that would be a place where if you have emotional or social interaction issues, you would find refuge in this alternate universe where there's a guy like you in every scene. Yeah,
yes.
It makes a lot of sense. So, okay, I also wanted to ask, when you get this script and it sits in your hands, you're like, yeah, this makes sense. Is that due in part to, I want to make sure I ask this question the right way. You're from
Well, if you don't, I'll answer it the right way.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
That helps out. You're from Australia, and I would say that from my perspective, and I don't know if this is a common American perspective, but you guys are unafraid to make films that I would call quirky. And I don't think that's the right word, but that's the best word I've gotten. Like, my eloquence is failing me.
Yeah, it's getting there.
But you guys pick. So if I'm pointing at the hutch. If this is the normal target where the American audience be like, I got a dude who's saving the day, and you guys are like, yeah, but we're gonna go boop, and then point over here. It's like it's gonna be a dressmaker. It's gonna be all those great films that got me into Australian cinema that happened in like the '90s, where you guys really emerged as someone like who told stories that just painted a different picture, but did it well enough that it took me on a ride. Is that kind of the school you come from, or is this kind of how I see this film? This isn't something that you would normally see in a cinema picked by, I don't know, pick an American director that makes movies. It just seems like more of an Australian vibe, or am I missing that?
No, I wasn't aware of it, but if it's something that comes to you, then I'm happy to embrace it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that... It's interesting that you think of Australian cinema as quirky. Certainly a lot of what I've done gets that description.
Sure.
Whether I'm happy with it or not, it's described as quirky.
How would you describe it? What's your adjective? Because it's not quirky. That's just the best I can do.
No, you mean as I would describe my own work, or
yeah, like your work in 3 words. What are those 3 adjectives?
Well, quirky might be one of them. I don't know. I'd like to resist describing my work in 3 adjectives.
Okay, fair enough.
It's like taking the last 45 years and giving each 15 years an adjective.
I know, right, yeah.
I'm not sure I can do
Okay,
it.
so do you have eras? Do you have like a blue era and then like a silk dress era or something like that?
Well, I think that I've always been drawn to offbeat characters.
Okay.
And
Offbeat's better than quirky.
yeah, and people who are a bit marginal, who are at the fringes of society.
I love it.
But I guess when I look at the subject matter I've covered, it goes from war movies to intimate little love stories to tragedies. So I like to think that I've dipped my toe in quite a lot of different ponds. I guess I can't help being a bit quirky myself.
Okay.
And I do have an absurdist view of life, I think. And I do tend to take a serious subject and try to find the funny side of it.
Give me an example of your absurd approach or view of life. Give me what kind of would you say characterizes that?
Well, I think that both Please Stand By and my previous movie, The Sessions, were about people who were setting themselves slightly impossible and slightly crazy tasks. In The Sessions, it was like a 30-something-year-old guy in an iron lung who decided he better get laid before his use-by date came up.
Sounds like a good approach to life.
And Please Stand By is about a young woman who's just got to get her Star Trek script in.
Yeah.
And in both cases, you think these are people who have committed themselves, 100% to their own little personal mission.
Right.
Which in the grand scheme of things doesn't mean much, but to them is the central focus of their lives.
Yeah.
And there is something absurd, but beautifully absurd about that.
Am I right in remembering that the Dakota Fanning character, Wendy, she writes a 500-word screenplay?
Well,
500-page?
500-page screenplay, yes. Well, 425 pages,
okay,
but we've fudged.
Either way, that is a lot of pages for a screenplay.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I don't know. I found myself in that situation.
Like page 372. I got another 100 pages to go.
Yeah.
But you have to appreciate taking a multi-100-page script out to market.
Yes.
As someone like this, I'm talking really to the audience. Ultimately, that is a hard thing to do for your first thing. Like, I have this great movie, and I have to get this to you. But the passion is what comes across. Like, when you sell these things, you're selling yourself. So she has to go out and find this audience. I love the concept for the movie. Talk to me a little bit about, you don't make movies every year. You have a pace that you kind of set in. What determines what is worthy of your time when you do it then? Like, when you really see, you must get scripts on a regular basis, especially like you said, since the last movie. What sticks with you?
I'm not quite sure I understand. Why don't I make movies every year, or how do I set the pace?
You have a pace that's determined.
Well, I mean, tough as it is, life sometimes interferes with movie making.
Sure.
And, I've been through periods of my life, for instance, as a writer, where I've said, I don't want to do this anymore. The idea of being alone in a room with your self-doubt, I couldn't think of anything worse.
Right.
At other times, I thought, what a perfect escape from the horrors of real life.
Right.
My own little world of imagination. Screw them.
Yeah.
But there have been times where I said, this is torture. I don't want to, be found in a kind of a skeleton in a pool of dust sitting at a desk writing a 500-page screenplay.
Yeah.
And so, I know there was a time when I stepped away from writing for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Because I thought, this is killing me.
Right.
Well, that's not setting the pace of movie making. That was me saying, look, I want to do something where I'm with other people, gregarious. So for a time, I just waited for directing gigs to come along, and they came along at their own pace, not at the pace that I set.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense.
I guess I've been described as the 40-year overnight success.
Oh, of course. You multiplied the whole, however long thing to 40 years.
And my career has really not been a model of a filmmaker's career in any way. I've had other interests. I've had gloomy periods. I've had ebullient periods. I've been to the top of the mountain, and I've seen the promised land, if you like. But I've regarded it as all very random.
Yeah.
This is just stuff that's happened to me rather than anything I've really designed. I wish I knew how to turn on the button that said, I'm going to sit here night after night with this fascinating story because I love it until I get it right. How do I turn on that button? I don't know.
Yeah, me neither.
Someone else or something else turns it on.
Absolutely. I mean, look,
or
as a guy that has these kind of conversations, it takes all of us to figure this out, whatever this is. And yeah, you think about these journeys, and it's like some people have a powerboat.
Yeah, and having a family and having children kind of interferes, you know, and you say, all right, well, it either interferes or it's a very good replacement for all that stuff.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, you know, it's was I watching that documentary about Judd Apatow made this documentary about this famous comedian.
I can't pull it.
And I forget, he had his own TV show and everything, and in the course of that, you know, someone was saying, look, if you're relying on the business as your anchor in life, Gary Shandling, the Gary Shandling documentary.
Okay.
And someone in that said, look, if you're relying on this business as your anchor in life,
right,
you better find another anchor.
Yeah. There's these moments and there's these different character types. We do a goofy thing called an album fight where we take two musical albums and we collide them together. Each, like the first song on each album is round one, and it's a boxing match. Yeah. So we had Prince on, so I was watching a bunch of stuff about Prince, and Prince played the Super Bowl halftime show maybe like a dozen years ago. And it was raining, pouring in crazy in Florida. And so, of course, the producer of the halftime show is like, oh my God, it's so rainy. I mean, it's Florida, but it's January. It's supposed to be the dry season, and I can't believe it's raining. I'm going to call Prince on the phone. It's like, hello, this is Prince, you know, kind of thing. And he's like, yeah, Prince, it's raining really hard. And he's like, I can see that. Like, yeah, but it's raining really, really hard. Are we going to be all right? You know, because this is what the producer cares about. And Prince says, can you make it rain harder? Okay. You know, like there's people like that. They're like, whatever the moment is, I'll turn it into what I need it to be. And I know I've got my own way to do it. But yeah, we all have our pace and our direction, and having a family.
I mean, I've had a pretty ridiculous career. When you look at it.
Yeah.
I think the timing of things.
Yes.
It took me a long time to mature. You know?
Okay. Yeah. Are you done maturing though? Or are you still...
No.
Okay.
I'm still. People ask me, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" But I still haven't got an answer.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
No, my mother said that as a writer, I certainly peaked with my bar mitzvah speech. You know, in which I was, you know, full of. Couldn't stop mentioning my mother as Steven Spielberg did when he got his first Oscar.
Yeah.
You know, thanked his mother as he should. So some people say I peaked at 13, and you know, I'm thinking, well, I'm still getting there. I'm still a sophomore.
Yeah. One of the things I love to ask guests who are older than me is you're still figuring it out. So how hard should I be beating myself up for not figuring it out yet? Like, should I just keep focus on working on the things that I do and that make me happy? Do you need to balance it with more hard things?
I don't know. There's been a huge generational shift.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of was born into a society which more or less gave every person one prospective career.
Right. Yeah.
Now we're living in an age where, you know, it's quite common for people to have several careers. And I have.
Yeah.
So I started as a criminal attorney, and, you know, for a while I was a photographer, and for a while I kind of dealt in expensive watches, and for a while I did this, and I think this is fascinating. You can keep on reinventing yourself until... you know, the bank repossesses your house or whatever, whatever the crunch point is.
Right. Or your use-by date comes up.
And you know, when I look at my kids, childhood has been extended by 10 years or so.
For sure. Yeah.
I hate to sound like an old fart, but, you know, when I left college at 22, I started practicing law. Mm-hmm. At 24, a lot of my friends were already practicing medicine.
Right.
Now, at the age of 30, people are starting to think about, well, what'll I do?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, what if you told...
if you're living at least 10 years longer than the previous generation, then you've got
at least, yeah,
more stuff to sort out.
Yeah, what if you went to your mom and said, "I'm going to take a gap year between high school and college," or like all that kind of thing that happens now. That
I think one of our kids did and the other didn't, and I don't know what they did, but okay, so be it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my daughter's going to be 21 in a few weeks. She's 31st of May, and I've always expressed to her, like, you need to go and take classes and be really broad. Find out where the A's are and where you're like, I have to go to this class. I have to do this because I love it, and then you get an A. Because where you think your trajectory is, I think you and I have found out, like, we had no idea. Like, my path is this. I'm a spy. I'm a this. I'm a that. And all these different things happen. And it's like, oh, who would have picked this path? It does make sense when you look back on it. I encourage my daughter to try to quit being so direct until you have that thing where, like, I'm going to do this for the next however many years,
I think that there's a downside and an upside to being a kind of Renaissance man or woman type.
Yeah.
I think the downside is that if you're in a business like the film industry, I think those who stay focused and are kind of really totally single-minded, nothing interests them apart from movie making, may have an edge on other people who are more interested in life, and movie making is just one little thing you do in life and not the meaning of it all, which is kind of where I'm at. I mean, I don't necessarily think that, if it had been born into the age of radio, I would have been doing radio. If I'd been a caveman, I would have been sitting around a fire telling stories. The medium doesn't really matter. It's the kind of the instinct for storytelling.
I'm trying to look up. I didn't get it done in time.
Multitasking.
Well, I was trying to pull a reference up and it didn't work out. Anyhow, yeah, I think about...
my wife does about 7 things when she's driving. How many things?
Oh my gosh. Well, let's see. I have to worry about getting to places on time. That's one. Navigate. That's two.
God, I feel so ancient. When I was a kid, we did not have a telephone.
Right.
Any sort of phone.
That makes no sense to me. Yeah.
If there was an emergency, you went down to the local store and used the phone to call
them. Yeah, when you make a movie, who's the guy that won in like the late 90s, A Beautiful Life, maybe? The Italian guy?
Yeah.
So you can make one of those movies and be like, that's what I did. Or you can be the singular-minded guy who's like every year making a movie. Not that either one is better, but it is beautiful to have that moment where he's standing on the chairs in the Oscars like, I've done this, and he celebrates this thing. That's also a good thing, to have this, to bring a singular voice, or even 5, 6, 7, 10 movies over a lifetime that are really special. That doesn't necessarily happen if you're always grinding and trying. Like, I have to make a movie this year, so I'm going to do this script, and it doesn't have that specialness. Do you think, or is that wrong?
Look, I don't know in the grand scheme of things how many filmmakers get to make a movie that pops above the radar and people notice in any way.
Right.
I've had the fun of it. The Sessions got an Oscar nomination, so there I was at the Oscars.
Right, yeah.
With an official ticket, and all of that. So
yeah.
I'm very pleased to have had that experience.
For sure.
Very few filmmakers have it on a regular basis. Stanley Kubrick, I guess, made one masterpiece after another.
Yeah, he got that groove.
Until he made a real turkey, and then he died.
Yeah.
And I think, totally speculation, but I think that it was maybe the terrible disappointment of making a movie that wasn't a spectacular hit that really did him in. And that, he was so invested in being a full-time genius.
Right.
And superstar that the moment he fell off his perch, pretty much life came to an end.
Yeah.
Now...
That's high stakes.
Yeah, I don't know. I connect in a way with all the films that I've made, but it's pretty much out of my hands which are the ones that kind of take me onto a stage and, I revel in the audience applause and think what a clever chap I am.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the movies you make become part of the sort of the normal discourse of movies. I mean, not...
Yeah. But there are moments when you're in the moment directing, and I picture you with the beret, looking through the camera. No, but as you're setting things up, there must be moments.
A beret and a baguette under my arm.
A baguette, maybe. Yeah. Or maybe one of those crops for like, hey, and emphasizing when you talk.
And do you see me with a viewfinder and pointing and stuff like that?
Maybe a monocle around a chain or something, just to peek in at something.
I remember when I did one of my first interviews, and I was living in England, and someone said, for the picture, could you hold up a strip of film and hold it to the light? I said, what? Is that how people think we make films?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, I'll do it. So, what was the question you asked me?
I don't think I even got there yet. So when I'm doing spy things, I'm looking for little golden nuggets that I can pull out and send up the chain, right? And it's not things like where are the bombs. It's the little precious things that someone goes, I never knew that, right? That's what I'm looking for. So I imagine that you're collecting special things as you're making the movie. I mean, obviously you have a thing in your mind that you kind of see it and you try to realize that. But
I think I understand what you're asking.
What do those things look like? Yeah, how do you know when you see it?
Oh, all right, I'd sort of ask in a different answer in a different way. You know, there are people who are goal-oriented.
Uh-huh.
And there are people who are process-oriented.
Okay.
Now, I remember having an argument on set with an actor many, many years ago. And, what I was saying was, look, I'm not here to win a personality contest. I've got my eye on the finished product.
Okay.
That's all that matters to me.
Okay.
And the actor was saying, well, look, it's not what matters to me. Because almost always, the finished product is a disappointment.
Wow.
In one way or another.
Yeah.
So if I'm not going to get my kicks out of the process, I'm probably not going to get them at all.
Right.
Now, I remember working with Dakota Fanning, and we're having a conversation outside a trailer or something, and just as she was walking off, I said, You're a process-oriented actor, aren't you? She understood the question right. Yes.
Yeah.
Wasn't a millisecond's hesitation. And I found out that she hasn't even seen some of the movies she's been in.
Wow. So she really is in that moment for the process.
It's to do with the moment.
Not the goal at all.
It's to do with the process.
Yeah.
Because I think you have to come to terms with that. It's very, very difficult to come to terms with. Because, the very first week of pre-production or something, or at a very early stage of the movie, people are already writing their Oscar speech.
Yeah.
And thinking, wow, this is going to make me famous, and and it's very hard to escape from that and say, look, learn to get your satisfaction from more immediate things.
Yeah.
And there were moments when I thought with Please Stand By, damn it, like the previous movie, I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I really, I thought, what's really special about this movie? I said, I've never worked with anyone like Dakota Fanning before. She's different. She's unique. And I'm going to enjoy that experience.
Yeah, all right. I'm starting to get a sense for this. Keep going.
And so my takeaway was really, wow, I just worked with one of the most gifted artists of her generation. And I've learned more about acting from this 21-year-old.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere.
In all my previous 40 years.
Now we're getting somewhere.
So, and then at the other end of the scale, you're kind of, oh, how much money did we take? What cinemas did we play? And I thought, oh my God, that's a different experience altogether.
Sure.
Than the one of being in the moment. And I would ask Dakota to do things again, not because she didn't do it properly the first time, but because I'd got this emotional rush out of being part of her performance.
Okay, yeah.
And I wouldn't mind having that again.
Right.
And, if you can bring me to tears once, go on, do it again.
Yeah.
So, I was getting this buzz out of just feeling I was part of her performance.
Oh, that's great.
You know, honestly, I've never worked with an actor before who never once asked to do it again. Which is not that she's not a perfectionist. Well, I don't know, but she'd always be so totally prepared and in the character that, I mean, getting the lines right was nothing to her.
Sure.
You know, I could give her a new page of dialogue 10 minutes before the take, and she'd have it down perfectly.
That is incredible to me when I see people do that. You know,
other actors go ballistic. How dare you do that? You're supposed to give this to me a week before, and on and on and on. With her, sort of, look, here's some new dialogue I just thought of, the writer and I. Oh, yeah, okay. Look, I'll get the crew to go out for 10 minutes. No, it's okay. I've got it. Yeah. Okay. So I want to jump in here real quick and say we're talking with Ben Lewin, the director of Please Stand By, which, of course, is available on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital HD. You guys know that we bring people on the show that are worthy of our support, so please take a look at this, especially if someone in your life is autistic, and because this is a story where the protagonist, the hero in our story, is someone who's got autism. She loves Star Trek. She writes a screenplay, and she takes it to market. Holy cow. That's incredible. So, Ben Lewin. And I want to get back into the Dakota Fanning stuff, but all of this is also fascinating to me. I feel like I'm sort of like you. So, again, as a guy that's been in combat a whole lot, the tactics really matter to me.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business, or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
But what matters even more is the ground truth and how it applies to the very specific things I have to do as I keep my eye on strategy. But the people, the strategists and the theorists and the policymakers have no connection to the ground truth, right? So I'm kind of this pivot, this junction between them, and they're always like, we're going to build a bunch of schools, we're going to build a bunch of hospitals, we're going to do microloans to increase business, and that's going to make this place a better place than it was before. Not a chance in hell that ever works, because it's so much harder when you get down to the very ground. So I like to slow way down and appreciate what it is to be a farmer. How do you help this person? Where do they want help? Because what they don't want is some money thrown at them and you leave. And like, they want to put their kids in school and be safe and all these other things. It sounds like you take a similar care in your movies, where it's not about churning out this movie to get the next budget so you can make the next movie so you can get the next. But it's more of a delicate process that you go through, and then you find someone like Dakota Fanning who's special. And her ability to create this emotion, which is my long-winded way of saying, when people can do that, when they hit that emotional mark, are those some of those golden moments where you're like, that, I need more of that. I need more of that moment where what you just gave me, how do we maximize that? Or how do we take that now and turn a different emotion out of it?
You mean between me and her as an actor?
Yeah, or what she's giving to the movie.
Well, in terms of directing technique, I don't like to mess with the actors too much. I used to be different. I used to be very controlling, I guess, when I felt less secure. But I think that I hate to generalize and say it always works, but I like to think that an actor embraces the role, owns it, and that I'm there to direct the whole movie, not to be their personal puppeteer.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
If I feel that a character has got the character, then I'm not going to try and reshape that. What I'll do is play with the performance.
Okay.
So, take one. We got it.
Yeah.
Let's try this, let's try that, and actually, we would sometimes just joke around.
Right.
I mean, I remember at the end of one long take where she has a lot of dialogue, instead of calling cut, I just let out a loud snore.
Yeah.
Completely. Not a lot of actors you can do that with.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the. I didn't rehearse in Please Stand By.
Okay.
I mean, these days with digital technology, you just rehearse on camera. You sort of see what happens.
Yeah.
It wasn't a matter of me deciding, we would do this or would do that. It was a matter of saying, well, we've got time to fool around a little bit. Let's try something different or whatever. But I want to talk about autism a little bit.
Please, let's do it.
And the social side of filmmaking.
Okay.
Since we have a lot of space, and I think this kind of topic interests you.
Absolutely, it does.
When I made the sessions, it was because I thought it was a powerful story. I didn't do it in order to say something in the kind of by way of disability activism.
Okay.
And in fact, it changed my life a bit, and this is relevant to Please Stand By in the same way, in that I lost my embarrassment and discomfort over dealing with social issues.
Really? Okay.
I mean, you can see I'm, physically disabled.
Sure.
I have been since I was a small child. But in all my growing up, I did my best to stay away from disabled people. I didn't like them much. And I certainly didn't associate myself as part of a disabled community.
Okay.
I did not see that community.
Right, okay.
With the sessions, I was dragged kicking and screaming into disability activism. Like it or not, I had opened this Pandora's box about disability and sex and
Okay.
and the rights of disabled people to have access to the same kind of life that able-bodied people expect.
Sure.
And there were direct results. The enrollment in sex surrogacy increased measurably after the film was released.
Really?
And I was invited to speak at God knows how many events that were focused around activism, disability activism.
Huh.
And I thought, look, this is not what I intended, but it's the result. And is it such a bad result?
No.
I thought, no. It's probably the first time in my life I've inadvertently done anything useful for anybody.
I know as a relatively able-bodied person, when I consider the topic of sexuality of people that have physical incapacity of some kind or another, other than the how do you do it,
yes,
that is where my concept, my curiosity ends, and it's kind of shameful.
This movie shows you how you do
right,
it.
Yeah,
it draws the diagrams very explicitly.
But I mean, it is an important thing to understand these things because these are, we're all people. We all have things that we have to deal with. Yeah, please.
To me, the real takeaway from Please Stand By, apart from the extraordinary experience of working with Dakota, was that it has activated the autism community in a very positive way. They have embraced the film,
right?
Are using it as a kind of a positive vehicle in a way that I think, again, why not? I didn't go into this with a social message, but coming out of it with this kind of sense that, hey, people who actually need to be part of social change and changing attitudes are looking at this as a kind of some vehicle for change or enlightenment. In a way, that kind of, if you ask most filmmakers, what do you prefer out of your film, social change or money? Most will say money and fame. Thank you.
Of course, right. I need my money. I know I need money.
But then I sort of came up through documentary films and was, much more aware of the connection between movie making and real life.
Okay.
I'm really, when you talk about your friend up north, I'm thinking, okay, Please Stand By has some kind of meaning to him and the people that he's involved with, then, maybe it's got more meaning to him than the latest Avengers movie has.
Yeah, well, I mean,
which has taken God knows how many $1 trillion. So part of me wishes that, if only I'd made the Avengers, I'd be king of the kids as well, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
So part of me is that kind of classic Hollywood movie maker. What are you here for? Well, I'm in it for the beer and the broads and the money.
Okay.
Another part of me is, well, like it or not, you tend to gravitate towards subjects that have some kind of resonance of your own experience.
Yeah.
I think, okay, so be it. If I've ended up expressing my personality in my movies...
Yeah, so be it.
So be it.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it. It's not necessarily a choice I made. I mean, if I'd been laid on the table, with that choice, well, do you want to do the next big studio movie? Yeah. Give me a gorilla movie, monsters, all that stuff.
Bigger gorilla. Right.
But okay, if I'm stuck doing movies with some social meaning, okay, I'll take that.
What?
I don't know. I mean, I think that my kids probably are more impressed by movies that, I know my daughter, I have an 18-year-old who's at college, and she said one of her friends somewhere, the sessions has actually been part of their coursework.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, my dad made that movie. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I guess there's a buzz out of that.
Yeah.
But, it's strange. When, after we made that movie, we got invited to all the parties. I didn't realize there were so many parties you could get invited to.
Right.
That, had no particular cause. And wow, we're on the invitation list. How did that happen?
Yeah.
and you get invited to the parties for a while, and then it peters out, and then I like being invited to the parties, but it's also meaningless and hollow and phony, isn't it? Yeah, well, give me more meaningless, hollow, phony stuff. So you can't help seeing the crass side of yourself.
Sure.
Honestly, people don't go into the movie business as an alternative to the Salvation Army.
Right.
It's an ego-driven business.
For sure, yeah. I have to tell stories. I have to act, right? It starts with the word I, always.
Well, you have to be measured. I mean, I don't know. I mean, even I thought once upon a time certain people were immune from being judged, but now even the local dentist gets Yelp reviews.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everyone's in the firing line.
Everyone is. I wanted to ask you a little bit too about that social choice versus the blockbuster choice and everything. There is value on the social side, and I'm not trying to social justice warrior thing, but when Joel and his son sit down, his son's, I guess you would call him pre-verbal, and he watches the Avengers, I'm sure he's going to go on that ride and love it. But when he sees someone like him writing about a movie from his own world, that's going to unlock things for him that there's no other option for really in a movie like that. Yeah, you can watch Rain Man or whatever, and that's a great movie, but we're talking about someone who's not supposed to be the hero, takes on this journey, and says, I'm going to do this, in spite of everything else. That's paying a dividend, because I've got a number of friends that have kids that are somewhere on the spectrum. Some of them look and act normal in 99% of the situations, but then there are certain things where they're not. And here they get, and they know that. They're like, this is part of my thing. And now I get to watch this movie about someone that's like me, that is doing, quote unquote, normal things. Like, look, it's as normal as pitching a movie is going to be. But it's neat to be able to give that to people, and maybe, I'm sure you realize it, but when someone sits there with their kid, and that's the respite that they can both just sit there and be a dad and a son and watch this movie, and it's a special thing. Like, my kid loves this because this is his hero. I think that's cool.
I think that it's Please Stand By is a quintessential family movie.
Sure. Okay.
I think there's another thing which is an interesting dilemma for filmmakers. The word autism is not mentioned throughout the movie.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
I think that we made a lot of effort to not have this characterized as a bleeding heart or a disease of the week movie.
Okay.
That it's kind of an adventure journey movie. I mean, and you can't sort of. I mean, honestly, just to go back to your original question, what drew me to it?
Right.
I have to say it's entertainment value.
Sure.
And I looked at it really quite professionally and say, hey, this is my living. I've got to be able to put my youngest child through college based on my ability to make movies that people are going to watch.
Right.
And not say, you've got to watch this movie because it's good for you.
Right. Yeah, a very special,
and
it's a good story.
And I think that there is a kind of, these days, there's a kind of autism chic out there.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you have more and more characters. You've got this TV show, The Good Doctor.
Okay. Yep.
And Atypical is another show with an autistic hero.
Right.
And there is a kind of a way in which these. I don't know if you ever saw that Scandinavian series called The Bridge.
No, never saw that.
Oh, fantastic! Have you seen it, Brianna? Oh, it's so
Sherlock
good.
Holmes is a bit of an autistic guy.
No. But in this Bridge, you have a woman detective who's either Danish or Swedish, and she is beautiful characterization of someone on the spectrum, and not for one moment do you feel sorry for her.
I like that.
In a way, there was a certain kind of inspiration from that character in trying to depict Wendy. You say, well, she has her moments, but you don't feel sorry for her. She's such a positive character.
Sure.
She inhabits her world with a kind of belief in it. And I thought, okay, characters who in a previous generation were marginalized or, felt irrelevant are now creeping into the lexicon.
Yeah.
Into the media. And I didn't think that Please Stand By was really riding on the idea of a bleeding heart movie so much as, wow, people on the spectrum are now characters that drive dramas.
Right.
And we're fascinated by them. I mean, the character in Please Stand By, which is a PG-13, we don't have that sort of, but in the character in The Bridge, when she wanted to have sex, it was like, I'm hungry, I need to eat, there's a good-looking guy, I'll ask him to come. It was as logical as that.
I love it.
So part of it was saying, look, these are new characters.
Yeah.
You can only benefit by playing them and exploring them.
Right.
And so that's part of the dichotomy.
Okay.
I am talking about social meaning and blah 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 blah, but honestly, when you start out making a movie, you're thinking of, wow, I'm looking for fresh. I'm looking for new. I'm looking for real. I'm not looking for a halo.
No, for sure. I need a fresh perspective, a new way to tell this story. And we're going to run out of time, and I have to ask you about Toni Collette because I love what she does. But I mean, I'm not in any way doing her career justice. I'm just going to say these words: Oscar nominated for The Sixth Sense. She, Little Miss Sunshine, she was awesome in that. She's so cool. Tell me a little bit about how you guys picked her. Just give me something about her role in the movie and what that means to you.
one of the reasons I picked her was, my God, she's a fellow Aussie. She's one of the best actors on the planet.
Sure.
Why haven't we worked together?
Yes, I love it. Why haven't we worked together?
And, we'd bump into each other on social occasions and then it'd mumble about, oh, we must do something together. Oh, finally, here's the chance to work together.
And thank you for doing that, because I love seeing what she does. She's awesome all the time.
Yeah, and it's like, every actor is different, but she has this kind of inbuilt professionalism, which is you think, wow, where does all that come from? Well, it comes from a few years of experience and some pretty well-honed technique.
Yeah.
I must say, we just had a lot of fun. I mean, there was no question that she could do this role.
Okay.
And she could just grasp it and understand it, and she would do it.
Right.
And so for me, it was, okay, let's enjoy ourselves.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of fun banter between the two of us. I mean, was she the only... No, the other Aussie on set was the cameraman.
Okay.
So
it counts.
Between the three of us, we were the kind of the Aussie, enclave.
Yeah.
But she was easy and very gratifying to work with. I mean, she just never disappoints.
Man, I wish we had more time to talk about Toni Collette, because I love what she does. But I want to focus on what's next for you. We've talked about Please Stand By, but what do you got on the hopper?
A movie where there's a cat at the center of it.
That's a new perspective.
Yeah, and called Cleo, based on a book that sold over 2 million copies about a cat that came into this family's life and helped them heal from grief and da-da-da. And I'm thinking, I go to YouTube and I see something about a cat playing with something, and 48 million people have watched it. And I think, God, when are 48 million people ever going to watch anything I make?
Right.
They're watching this thing about the pussycat, and I'm thinking, wow, there is this
crazy
global fascination with cats. And I was saying to Brianna before, my oldest daughter has 3 cats tattooed on her shoulder. It's almost a family thing. So I'm very interested in that project. I'm interested in a project about 2 opera singers, competing in the same competition. And of course they fall in love and ruin everything. And I just like the idea of something set in opera. I think it's kind of time to bring that music in.
I love opera.
I'm also involved in a story of Australia's greatest composer, Percy Grainger, whose most famous work, if you like, is Oh Danny Boy. People have never heard of Percy Grainger, but they know Oh Danny Boy.
Of course.
Of course. Anyway, this is very complex.
That's how I sing it too. I sing the Oh Danny Boy part, and then I make up the rest.
Yeah, but there are always several projects on the table, and you never quite know which one is going to, which train is going to leave the station first.
Yeah.
It usually depends on casting. You get cast, and I just made a spy movie as well. So.
Oh man, what's your spy movie about?
It's about a character called Mo Berg.
I know Mo Berg, the catcher.
The catcher.
Yeah, brilliant guy.
That's the name of the movie.
I have to, because I was a spy. I have to know
the
this
catcher
stuff.
was a spy.
Yeah, so that's the book. You made that into a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you, man. That's a fun movie.
Very difficult to figure that guy out.
Boy, I don't think anybody figured him out.
Have you read the book?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I read it 3 times. I couldn't figure the guy out.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of was he even really a spy? Well, that's a great question to ask, because he really went to Japan, and I don't want to ruin the movie, but
no, that's all right.
And he also he was a crap baseball player for a long time, but they kept him on the teams. How the heck did you stay on as a third catcher?
Well, because they loved that guy of him being the professor. He brought a lot of attention to the game.
Right. Yeah,
and he was a real novelty act. But, I mean, look, why am I out there making a World War II spy movie? Honestly, I don't know. It's because I'm the perfect guy for the job, I suppose. But I like to keep working. It's a very different experience directing other people's scripts.
Yeah.
And directing my own.
Which one do you prefer?
I honestly don't know. I thought I preferred directing other people's scripts, and I'm not I don't know now. Because
decide.
after the sessions, which was my script, I thought,
So Moberg wasn't your script?
no,
Okay.
no, that was Robert Rodat, who wrote...
well, thanks, Robert, for doing that.
Saving Private Ryan was his big calling card.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah. And look, I honestly don't know. I think that I want to go maybe back to directing my own stuff. Just, see
hey, do what moves you,
Yeah.
Make sure you guys watch Please Stand By. It's available on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital HD. Obviously, there will be a link in the show notes to get to that. I'm excited if the cat project happens because there are cat celebrities in the YouTube world that go to cat cons and everything else.
And there are opera lovers. I don't know. I mean,
I'm not kidding. I love opera. I love it. There's Rigoletto's playing at the LA Opera right now. Up north in San Francisco, The Ring is playing. Like, I love opera. I'm crazy about it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, who knew? God, I remember I went to the opera. I could never afford to. I lived in London for a while. I could never afford to go to Covent Garden. My God, it was like, just aristocrats only. But then I went to Italy. Teatro de... what was it called? Anyway, it was like these old ruins.
Sure.
And the opera was set there, and it was Aida.
Oh,
and honestly, the crowd was like a football crowd.
Yeah.
They weren't like people dressed up to the nines, paying hundreds of dollars for a ticket. It was like a football crowd.
Yeah.
And it was so friendly, and people got up and cheered, and after every song, someone would be yelling out, gelato, Coca-Cola, and it was a different opera experience.
Sure.
So I thought, this is a really treat, this is not an elitist activity. This is like a popular thing. Anyway.
It used to be that they would get up and actually do encores of that movement. Like they would like shout like encore, encore.
They'd do the same thing over again.
Yeah, we'll back it up and do it again. Yeah. All right, here we go. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. And there are a couple of other projects as well. So maybe your guess is as good as mine.
But Moberg is already done and in the can?
Moberg's done, yes.
All right, I want to talk to you again when we're ready to do that one. All right, everybody. Look, Ben Lewin, I've had you for an hour, and I can't take any more of your time without asking. We've already been patient with me in the as far as the traffic went and everything. So,
yeah. Are your listeners predisposed to movies like Please Stand By? Do you know?
I think so. Yeah. I think, look, when we did the math the other day when Joel was on, there's tens of millions of people in this nation that are touched or, have some kind of spectrum-based thing. And so, yeah, I mean, tons of them. It's as common as I can right now without trying to think of 4 people that I know that are somewhere on the spectrum. And that means there must be 100 people around them that care about them and want to see more about their life.
I'd like to feel that people who weren't on the spectrum would find it just as entertaining.
Absolutely. That's what I'm getting at. There's so many people that would go, I never even considered this, and go on the ride. I think they absolutely would.
I love the idea that I'm kind of, there's a kind of geeky audience.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and it's got Star Trek all throughout it, so why not, right? Why not make content off of that? All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Ben. I really do.
It was great. I mean, my God, I haven't even run out of breath.
That's what I love to hear right there.